to be as simple as possible, like, if you wanted to study this sort of thing using like your most basic like correlation analysis, you would, sort of open up your statistical program and you would tell it, like, I want you to line up kind of on an XY axis, like black and brown neighborhoods or lower socioeconomic neighborhoods, and the extent to which they experience economic gains from this time to this time.
And hold on to that. I'm wondering, let's not make any assumptions. Are there systems that actually track that? Who is counting the brown people in a neighborhood?
Yeah, you're going to be relying on census data.
Okay, census. Okay.
Which, I personally don't have a problem with.
Okay.
But
that's where we're starting.
Yes.
We're starting according to census data. Please go on.
Yeah, well, according to census data, I personally don't have a problem with it, but I'm actually glad that you bring this up because many economists do, particularly when we're talking about using ethnicity as a variable, because when you last filled out your census, it's not like some government official came to your house and measured you up and was like, oh, he's this, this, and this. No, it just relies on self-reporting. And what we have realized, like really only recently, and shame on us, is that both race and ethnicity are they're more personal than I think we once thought. And what I mean by that is you might look at someone and
how
be
we
like,
identify.
Yes.
Here's everything.
Right. So what you might see as a black or brown person, maybe your eyes tell you that, it's quite possible that is actually not what they said on their census, right? So anyway, I only bring that up to say, like, we're introducing another issue with statistical analysis.
I have met a number of people who have come from what are known as Latin American countries who identify as white.
Yes, that's probably the biggest issue we run into.
Which is a world history, not a U.S. history. Right? If you are aligning with Spain versus, La Indigena, then you are white.
Yes.
And so when you see white on there, even if it's a /Caucasian, but if you're in the United States, then you are seen as a minority.
That's exactly right.
And that is derogatory. Especially to someone who is esteemed, quote unquote, esteemed themselves as white. And now they're a minority because they're Latino.
That's exactly right. You also get some of the opposite problem we have learned with particularly Dominicans who
bleach their skin.
Okay, well, we'll go right there then.
Was that Sosa?
Yeah, well, yes, you are absolutely right.
He went from back of his hand to palm of his hand in a weekend, and no one blinks an eye. Okay, go ahead.
I personally will withhold comment on perhaps the internal racial struggles of the Dominican experience, but it creates statistical problems because, for better or for worse, and I'm not commenting on it, in this country, in the U.S., if you are a dark-skinned Dominican, you're black. Like, that is what this country sees you as.
Yeah.
There are many dark-skinned Dominicans who would wholly reject the idea that they are black, and would therefore not select black on their census data.
We see that on the continent of Africa as well.
Yeah.
Right? We see it in Rwanda. We see it in Nigeria. We see it in different places. That's another topic in terms of... I'm happy to go there, but that is another topic in terms of self-identification. But there could be something to consider as like a pin.
Sure.
And I don't want to veer you. So please continue.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry that I've been sort of long-winded here. But I think the discussion is useful because we've been talking about just one issue that gets introduced when we try to do quantitative analysis on these things, statistics on these things.
Yes.
there are many others, and at this point, I'm going to force you to take my word for it, so I don't keep talking about it.
Okay.
But if we are open to qualitative analysis, right, where we, first of all, and I'm going to get a little sociologist here. First of all, if we as scientists or intellectuals or researchers or whatever humble ourselves enough to listen and give credence to like people's lived experience, like the way that people describe their own experience, that would help us start getting at this problem. So we danced around a little bit earlier, but let's go ahead and kind of hit it on the nose. Food deserts is one of the big issues, which really should not have even been possible with the expansion of physical infrastructure that this country experienced. But the infrastructure expanded in such a way that it left many communities behind, and one of the best pieces of evidence we have of that is food deserts.
Yeah.
That sort of became a buzzword, I think, early 2000s, 2010-ish. People were talking about that decades before. We were just too arrogant to listen to them.
Sure. Like opioids.
Well.
You mentioned Reagan, so.
Yeah. We'll do another one on drugs. I'll need some whiskey to talk about that. But people were talking about this long before. We were just too arrogant to listen.
Okay.
I think, and you could look at something like if a given community wanted to get to their city center, to the center of their metropolis, like how many routes would they have to get there, and how quick are those routes?
Yeah.
You could try to do some sort of quantitative analysis on that. I think you'd be better off just conducting like interviews, frankly, with people from various communities to get their experience.
Okay.
Anyway, I've rambled a bit. I've gotten a little bit angry thinking about these things, and I actually forgot your original prompt. I hope I've been speaking to it.
So if we circle back, we go back to Rousseau. We go back to Rousseau, and we talk about the happy illusion. We look at the happy illusion, and I asked you to look at the Electoral College, and I'll tell you the reason why in a second. But we skipped over. Eventually we end up at the rich, and you then replaced rich with capitalist because we're talking about resources. And I asked you the question: if we could liken the childhood example that you gave in terms of being able to play a video game, because your parents and parental figures had squared away the resources for you to do so, and you were happy for that to be there. You didn't even have to think that it would be otherwise. Well, now we can liken that perhaps to the rich or the capitalists, however you want to put it, where those with resources create an infrastructure where the citizenry can play. What is the difference? And I'm wondering, is that still a happy illusion?
Well, that's right, and that's how we got to talking about intentions, whether intention can be measured.
Yes.
And so this is wonderful, and I think I can bring us full circle here, and I'm glad that we wound up on food deserts. I'll use a metaphor, and I hope it's well received. If in the family structure, under the umbrella that was set up for me by those around me, if ever I had said, "Hey, family, I really like oranges, but I've noticed that all the oranges are on the top shelf and I can't reach them," they would have either moved the oranges to a lower shelf or gotten me a step stool. There would have been adjustments made so that I could continue to benefit. In our sort of capitalist physical infrastructure example, for decades, communities said, "Hey, those who provide the umbrella, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of good food available to me. And we did nothing. Actually, we gave them 7-Eleven is what we did.
Okay.
Which is food that kills them, by the way.
Yeah. Well, you got the bananas at the counter.
Oh, thank God.
Sometimes they'll do a 2-for-1.
You're right. How generous. Now we're one step away from talking about Marx. Talking about eating the crumbs that fall off the table. We're going to get to Marx.
Sounds like you want to get to Marx.
No, I don't want to get to Marx. I don't want to get to Marx. For my listeners, I don't. I'm not a Marxist. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's more into angles. It's okay. So that's interesting. The way that you put it does, I think it's well done, and it points back to intention. Why wouldn't a system or a person reach up and grab the orange for the person who can't reach it?
There's no incentive to do so.
So it goes back to the incentive of the wealthy to do what's quote unquote right.
Yeah, there's no, and by the way, there's very little incentive in the American economy to do right at all. Like, to do right for the sake of doing right, that's not, and look, I'm not making a sort of moral judgment here. It's just, we have chosen to build an economy that prioritizes capital. Capitalism. Generally speaking, when you hear ism, you can think about the protection of. So in this economy, we focus on the protection of capital, right?
Okay.
So you are rewarded for protecting and or acquiring capital.
Yeah.
That is often at odds with doing the right thing.
Yeah, but where is the capital generated? Because I would wonder if, imagine an economy that is consumer-based. Imagine that the majority of consumers are those who ironically don't have resources and put it on credit. Imagine that, if you need to use the power of imagination.
I don't.
But I would wonder if that does capture a sizable population of the United States and similar countries. If that is the case, then it is on the backs or on the credit statements of those who have less that the country and the wealthy can maintain and increase their capital.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair way to put it.
So then this is what I'm trying to figure out in terms of incentive. Wouldn't someone who is wealthy want to keep that going? Wouldn't someone who is healthy want to encourage and enable someone with less resources to continue spending? Wouldn't they want to make it sustainable?
Yes, they would.
And so what I'm wondering is if there is a willingness to make that sustainable, because that would sustain capital, then why not reach for the orange?
Unfortunately, or just is what it is, what some very astute bankers and financiers in this country have learned is that they have achieved something that is sustainable. And they have found that they maximize their capital gains by, it's not even helping, it's just by sort of tweaking the system just enough so that you can make the minimum payment on your credit card and no more. Like, when you just make the minimum payment and no more, that's when their sort of capital is sustained. Now, they have to make sure that you can continue doing that, and perhaps at times there's like, I mean, I was going to say at times perhaps there's grace extended to make sure you can do that, but I'm actually struggling to think of when that happens en masse. I mean, I think at this point they just have so many people that are sort of feeding into the capital creation that, like, if a few of you default, it just doesn't matter very much.